You told me a minute ago, this time you want to agree with me.
Yeah, I'm a liar. You should know that.
Typical French, right? Typical French. No, this month, I want to talk about that. I feel that we as water industry take ourselves as too important, and we as industry, we don't have any intention to solve the water problem. Don't get me wrong. We have all the technologies to solve all the water issues we have, to solve all the challenges we are faced to. But my feeling is, we are just a supplier for another industry. So that means we develop solutions, we develop technologies, and in the end, we give that to another industry. For instance, to the process industry. And they have to implement that. And we all the time thinking about like circular economy, thinking about wastewater reuse, all these things, right? But in the end, isn't that the fact that even our end customer from this perspective need to think about that, need to talk about that? I came with that idea some months ago. Remember in Frankfurt? We met Icarus and we talked to him and he said clearly, live on camera, he said, wastewater plant, wastewater treatment, is an issue, but it doesn't bring any money. So they don't care. This was just one opinion, but let's say if you walk the floor to all the industries, you get really the feeling, okay, yes, we are a supplier for something, but they don't get any money out of that. We are there, we are supplying technology, we are just supplying an installation to treat their water, to treat their wastewater, but we are not as important as we all think all the time. And furthermore, I was thinking, we as industry, yes, we don't really want to solve the global water issues. And I came with that due to the fact, last month there was a stakeholder consultation, the second time from the UN Water Conference.
Don't tell me you were in that conference.
No, I were not. Okay. I were not in that conference. But I checked.
Sidetrack, I was in, and that was boring as hell. But okay.
But the point is, I checked the agenda, and you was free to give any topic you want. You could place on the agenda. And I checked all the companies, or let's say all the stakeholders who placed a topic. Guess what? Out of hundreds, I found 3 water companies. Only.
Okay, so there's a reason for that. It's that simply they do, it's like, when you go to a nightclub, there's someone outside the nightclub who decides who goes in. And that they did the same here. Because I tell you, I wanted to go in. And they told me, no.
But you could place a topic on the agenda.
You could try, but they
decide no. Suez did, BioAzul did, and I found a third one.
Okay, so you gave the people who will be on the agenda always because they're big enough.
All I'm saying is, BioAzul is a very small company. You haven't heard about that. It's a Spanish company. All I'm saying is that, let's say, if you really want to change this topic, how we proceed in future, how we solve the water challenges we have, why are we not more proactive? And guess what? I feel that every company is looking for having their solution to sell that to the market. Full stop. Sometimes they go a little bit further, but let's say in general,
that's where I need some definitions to understand you.
In general, let's say they just want to bring their technology, they see it as a business, and then they step back. So that's all I'm saying is...
Who's they? Who's this industry you're talking about?
The water industry.
Yeah, okay, but how do you define it?
The water industry, from pump supplier to an EPC, and everything what is in the middle.
So if I take back the pyramid, on the very bottom of it, you have like the suppliers, like GF Piping Systems, we supply parts, we're part of this industry because we are suppliers. So that would be the bottom of what you're looking at. Then you have the OEMs, integrators, OEMs, up to EPCs. Exactly. But you don't consider like consultants, end users, or industrial players. Those would be outside of what you define as the water industry.
Consultants are a different game, but let's say to who we, deliver the solutions are, let's say, our end clients. And they are not part of the water industry because they are process industry, they are municipalities, they are communities, whatever.
It's a way to define it. I just want to be clear about that.
If it is industry, then we produce as industry. We are not part of the automotive industry just because we are driving a car. Right, so it's the same. It's the same with the water utilities or with the water industry end clients.
Okay,
so that's what I'm saying, and
that's where I disagree with you. But okay,
and that's what I've seen is, and let's say finish the point. During the stakeholder consultation, only 3 companies I found. So we always claim that we want to solve the global water challenge, but there is not really a proactive way in doing that, and that's why I think our industry takes ourselves a little bit too important, as we aren't.
Okay. I will need you to come to a conclusion as well on that, But before coming to the conclusion, I'd like to tell you why I disagree with you. The reason why I disagree is you're saying we don't want to solve it. And I'm not debating that. I would say the industry wants or needs us to solve it. And that's different because you're taking that industry as outside. But let's take...
But it is outside. It is outside. That is what we have. If you look at Frankfurt.
Look at many countries, look at what's happening right now. First, in terms of regulations, you have, like, if you're a mining site, you have more and more these rules of 120% water. Meaning, if you're a mining site, which is then doing something which has nothing to do with water, the laws in many countries tell you that you have to produce 100% of your water plus 20% of your water, which you give back to the community. Which means that the mining site becomes like a water utility. You might say that's an exception, but that's also true in microelectronics. When they are in the middle of a desert, they have to be their own water utility. So that is also something which is quite important. And then you have the full ESG drive, which means that when ESG money...
Don't come with ESG.
When ESG... Yeah, but that's a controversial topic, but that's part of the topic, because when ESG money comes and tells you have to be water cautious, then all of a sudden every industry becomes like water cautious, because if they don't get money. It's kind of a virtuous circle on one end. It's kind of bullshit blue washing on the other hand, let's be fully honest as well. But what I want to say with that is that somehow those two incentives, regulation and money, pushes those people back into the water industry.
Yeah, but this has nothing to do with us as industry, as I see that.
That's the way you define us,
right?
Which to me is kind of restrictive.
But
because
we learned in Frankfurt that we have the process industry. We serve the process industry, or we serve all the industries with our technologies or installations.
Arkema was the process industry in Germany, which is kind of the conservative way to do business.
Just the world leading, right? Congress for the process industry.
But you discuss with a German company active in Germany, which is probably true in Germany, whatever they said. I'm just debating the fact that in other places where it's a bit less built in silos.
So that would mean you would define a microelectronic industry, or let's say a fab plant, which will be built, for instance, here in Germany very soon in Magdeburg. They are a water company. They belong to a water industry. Don't say that.
I'm not saying that the full...
No, we are serving them in giving them the technologies and the way forward that they can have the water they need to produce.
That the full factory is part of the water industry, but you cannot just exclude them and say that we are sub-supplier. That's not true.
We are.
No.
Yes.
No. They have to be cautious of their water. It's
True.
a must. They cannot... I mean, in the past, they maybe were something outside because they were just saying, okay, I need water. I take so and so much cubic meter and that's it. But more and more, if you have these regulations in place in being cautious about water, if you have this push about recycle that much amount of water and then you'll get ESG money. If not, then your ESG score is too low and you have a problem. Then they have to be part of it. And they have ESG committees and they have people looking for that. Maybe they're doing it for the wrong reasons, but still they are doing it. And I wouldn't exclude them from the equation like you do. I mean, that's restrictive.
I mean, it's the same in Frankfurt. We talked about, let's say, circular economy. We said, hey, the entire water industry is talking about circular economy. What can we do with wastewater? How can we process? And so on and so on. The industry itself, they don't care. Most of them, they don't care. I mean,
a portion of them doesn't care.
So
maybe the majority says how it's an afterthought, but still, I would say there's the same amount of people which are early movers than the one you define as they don't care. So it's like a balance. You have a lot of people in between.
No, but shouldn't we bring our clients into the process to think about what to do in future?
Why has Nike responsible for water? Why has Amazon a full team dedicated to water? Why has Apple, Facebook, and all the likes, some people dedicated to water? Because more and more they recognize water to be on the critical path on whatever they produce. So to them, they treat water as a risk. And if they treat water as a risk, that means they need people to solve for it. And then there are two ways to solve for it. The first is to say, hey, look, I have sub-suppliers and they deal with it, which is what you explain. And I'm thinking that more and more they take a more clever approach, which is to say, let's do everything as a team. Let's look at ways to optimize that and to have a full ownership of the full process.
I mean, you named 3 out of the 4 big companies we have right now, right? But let's say these are examples which are, let's say, far away. Think about all the, let's say, the mid-sized companies. They don't have dedicated teams.
No.
They don't have that. And they cannot afford that. And they don't see themselves as part of the industry. They see themselves as part of the metal industry, part of the chemical industry because they have to sell the product. They have to earn the money with that. Yeah. So that means we are supplying just some kind of water or a technology that they can go on.
That's the part where I think you're wrong. We're not just suppliers. If we were just suppliers, then it means we're still in the 90s and we still have a problem, because we are supposed to be part of that team, and the water awareness, not for the man in the street, but the water awareness among the corporates.
But back to the consultation. Why only 3 companies? I mean, there were five groups: water for health, water for development, water for climate, resilience and environment, water for cooperation, water for action decade.
Because the way
hundreds of topics.
The way that conference is set up is just crazy. I've been in 2 preparation calls hoping that I could at some point maybe even write a question, but even that, I didn't come to that, because you need to qualify for that, then you need to fill 20, 30 pages. So you're really taking like an outlier and saying that's the rule. It's not the case.
But shouldn't we be more active? Shouldn't we be more present? If we as pros, as water pros, wants to support to solve the water issue we have?
That water conference is
a stakeholder consultation.
It's the biggest event we are supposed to have over 50 years, and it's happening next year in March. And honestly, the closer we get to it, the more disappointed I am about it just in advance. I mean, it's organized by the Embassy of the Netherlands in cooperation with the Embassy of Indonesia, when it's supposed to be the thing organized by the United Nations. And then when you're inside that call, it's full of people who are like, yeah, I have that very specific problem in that very specific place. What can I do about it? Yeah, I thought we were supposed to take an helicopter view and to take some global approaches. So that is an entire different topic, which I'm really happy to take on that microphone, because I was shocked by that process, honestly. And I'm still very shocked about that process. But you cannot just take that 100 and say,
no,
3
true.
companies.
But we as industry, shouldn't we take the ownership and say, well, we are the pros, we have the solutions, we will support you in a better way. So come to us, or let's say be proactive, and we as industry go over there.
Should we maybe not? I don't know. Honestly, I don't have an opinion on that. So
the point is, the industry is not interested in doing that.
Because of this 80-20, where do you put your efforts which bring the maximum yield? Do you think that if all the water companies were to try to crash that process and to be in that stakeholder meeting, will it change much for our industry? I fear not. So I wouldn't tell them wrong.
You know why you see all the NGOs there? They don't need to be so profitable as, let's say, a private company. And that's why they can focus on that. The private companies in our water industry, they need to ensure that they sell the products, right, to get money. That's the nature of business. The NGOs, which are, let's say, the major companies which are part of the consultation process, they don't need that. And that's why they are there. I
really think you're taking a weird lens to analyze an epiphenomenon, because NGOs talk to governments. True. That's not really new.
But if you really want to solve, but if you really want to solve that, why you do not talk to the industry? If we are the pros, why nobody is doing that? And why, as industry perspective, we are not proactively going there?
80-20 rule. There was this conference in Mar del Plata in 1977, and the water industry was involved. And what did it change? Nothing. So maybe they realized when there was the next conference in 82, in 83, and then in the water. I mean, you don't want to history.
So what you are saying is that we are depressed and we don't want, as industry, and we don't want to go there.
We are looking at ways to be efficient, and that is not a way to be efficient. That conference.
So what is a way then to be efficient to solve the global water issue? If not, if you go to the UN, because they should have the helicopter view.
It is that good old startup rule. The idea is nothing. The only important thing is the execution. And I think the private sector has an expertise, and the water industry has an expertise in the execution. And so I do hope, and I have examples for that we are currently executing on the promise, and that we are really doing that. Like, there's a company who has this 120-person rule. Cool, fine, we support as a water industry. There's a company who has that pressure of ESG. Cool, we support as an industry. And you have many companies within the water sector which are saying, okay, before we go to all the other companies and push them to do something which they maybe don't want to, we walk the talk. That's what Xylem does. That's what Evoqua does. They have these rules of recycling the entire water. It's nothing on the scale of the planet, but they are saying, look, we are able to do it. So if we are able to do it, then everybody shall. And I think that is much stronger as a message as just going to the United Nations and doing the good old.
So that means you're saying
water is everything.
That means that the coverage,
water is life.
The coverage what Xylem is doing is bigger. What they do, for instance, with Manchester United, as a UN, what they do. So yes. What you are saying, UN is bullshit. We can
No, I'm not saying UN is bullshit. That's why I was trying to be involved in that process somehow. And don't get me wrong, I'm not whining. It's just I do get why they don't want me to be part. I'm just nothing in that word. I'm just saying that when I see people like Mina Guli struggling to win the agenda while she was advocating for it for the past 15 years more than arguably anyone in this world, I'm thinking, to whom are we really giving the torch or the microphone? So I still want to have like an open heart to that conference, and I still hope that there will be real enlightening moment in that conference. But to me, the decisive battle happens in the month after that conference. Because the conference will come and all the media attention of all the people who never talk about water will be on that water conference, because, hey, come on, the United Nations did something for the first time in 50 years since that Mar del Plata one. And they will come with a lot of problems and then maybe some solutions.
So do you really believe that there's an outcome out of that, which will help?
Yeah, I believe that the companies of the water industry, the one you mentioned that don't want to solve the problem, that's, in my opinion, not true. I think they have a unique opportunity in that month after to say, look, they have been preparing all of that, and we were not really involved in the preparation, but we have been preparing ourselves on our specific side, and here are our solutions which we're proposing. You've been identifying the problem. Awesome, that's your job. We are the professionals, we come with the solutions, and then we have a good encounter of those two words around the conference, but not during the conference.
But I don't believe that. I think maybe big companies are able to do so. I mean, you mentioned Salem, we talked about Veolia. We know that Veolia, for instance, has these kind of people who are going to the government. But let's say all other companies, which are smaller than them, no chance. I don't think so.
Not alone, but if they team up, I think there's...
But I don't see that they team up.
I'll give you an example. Currently, with GF, what we are doing, what I started with a team inside GF is that we said, okay, we will not be as GF at the United Nations. Nobody will invite us. We are too small for that. Our 2 billion turnover doesn't count on that stage. But we can go to all the OEMs, 200 people companies around the world, which we know which are our customers, and say, look, they will be saying that we still miss a lot of the water. They will be saying that SDG 6 is progressing at a quarter of the speed it should to reach the goal by 2030. So we know the problems that we identify. So whether we sit on our hands and we say, oh, poor world, and again, we missed the goal, or we come with solutions. Doesn't mean that the solutions would necessarily work or necessarily be executed, but at least we can say, look, you have the problems. Here is our proposal as a solution. And what we want to do is we want to write like a white paper or to have a conference just after and saying they identified problem, we propose solutions. And then if you don't take our solutions, then fine. But if it doesn't work, what you try to do, then don't come to us and say we didn't do our part, because we are doing our part. And what we are doing right now is like, I see that as an open source project. I just wanted to start that, so I started it. But whoever wants to join the cause, and whoever even wants to lead the cause, saying like, GF, you're not the one who's supposed to lead. I don't intend to lead. I intend to be part of it. So I think that's how we should be doing that. And like the hummingbird, I intend to do my part. And if all the hummingbirds in the water industry do their part, then even if the governments screw up once again...
Sure. But the point a little bit is, I don't see that. I mean, it's a nice initiative you're leading here. I mean, is it a personal thing?
I had some colleagues and we sat together and says, okay, why do we have a voice in that? Do we have ideas? Yes, we have. So
okay, but it's an interesting and, let's say, very promising approach. And hopefully you will find some players
who
jump onto your board.
You've been talking with many people in all the conferences, and you see how the people in this industry, they have a drive. And then, of course, if you look at the bigger scale of it, it's like not that much happens and everybody says it's a conservative industry. But if you take the people one by one, I couldn't identify some individual people who were conservative and doing nothing. I see people with a drive which don't have like
I don't
like
see many people
together.
I don't see so many people with a drive.
Really?
I see people with a drive, yes, definitely, but I see more people who, let's say, are in this industry and say, well, I'm in this industry, I don't care about water.
Really?
Yes, and it is a job as anything else. Go to each conference, talk to the people. Yes, there are people who are passionate about that. Yes, there are people who want to see the water industry as North Star, but there are more which are saying, well, I get some money for that.
We all know that the water industry is not the best paying industry.
I don't
care.
So
if you don't have a drive, but what do you do in that industry? I mean, go out and work in the tobacco industry. They're looking for there are a lot of jobs in the tobacco industry right now, and you're going to make money.
I think I made the poll.
Or go to oil and gas. You're going to make money.
I think I made the poll some time ago, a year ago or 2 years ago. I made the poll somewhere on LinkedIn, and the majority was really saying, well, Yes, I am in the industry because I'm in the industry. I'm not in the industry because I want to solve the world. I want to solve water. I'm here because I'm passionate about water.
First, I'm sad about that. And second, do you think maybe that has changed with the lockdowns, with coronavirus and everything? Because people now, and it's a generational thing as well, want to have a meaning in what they do. And honestly, there's so much of a cool meaning in being in the water industry that I cannot imagine people just don't giving a shit.
I can give you a personal example. I mean, I met a couple of people who wanted to work with me, right, for my company, and I told them, hey, I mean, if you want to do some meaningful, yes, I'm in the water industry. And then they found, in the first place, they found that idea very cool. But in the second place, then they identified how the industry is.
You're in the marketing of the water industry, that's specific.
That doesn't matter. But there are people who say, well, I want to do something meaningful. And meaningful means, okay, we do something for the environment. And water, well, I mean, you can't do more, right? We know that because we are both passionate. But they said, okay, yes, it's cool, I want to do that. And then they looked into the industry and then they identified, okay, a little bit boring. And so they jumped away. So yes, I hear that all the time, that they all want to do something meaningful. Yeah, okay, maybe I'm 43. I'm a little bit the edge of that from that age. But I don't see that so much, honestly.
I fear that you might be right for some generations, for some people.
I'm not saying about all. We both especially know people who are really passionate about that.
To me, it's you need a flag, you need a cause, and then you can rally for that.
But the point is always, I mean, we are talking to people who wants to talk about that they are passionate about that. You will never have someone on your microphone who's just someone, let's say, number 15 in the company and is selling a product because he don't want to talk to you and you don't want to talk to him. But these people are more than the people who are, let's say, the leader or the drivers or whatever.
I have a certain level of cynicism to that extent. In the sense that I don't care what's your drive as long as you have a drive. So if your drive is you're convinced about what I'm saying all the time, that water is a profitable business where you can be doing good money, by the way, as a byproduct doing good. But honestly, you can even wipe out the doing good because I'm convinced that whatever you do in the water industry, you're going to do good. So just concentrate on the money. There's a lot of economic opportunities out there. And if that's your drive, then all fine with me. I don't see like the water industry as a 9-to-5 job.
Oh, there are so many who see that.
Honestly, even when I was doing my last internship on a wastewater treatment plant before becoming an engineer, I was working with 4 guys. And these 4 guys were like, it was a 60,000 population equivalent plant. So they had a lot of stuff to do. So you could think that those guys were going to have a 9-to-5, but they didn't. They were like, what happens if I don't grease the pump? Who will notice? Nobody. But they were like, if I don't grease the pump and then it doesn't work, then the sludge extraction doesn't work and people might be having sludge in their basement and they will hate me for that. And so their drive was, there's a community, I need to serve my community. And that's a drive. And they didn't care about the environment. That's not the driver they had. But their driver was, I want to help my community. And I'm absolutely sure that not everybody, because the world is not perfect.
But let's say, let's agree, there is more air for the industry and for the people in the industry to come to the next level.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that's the case, because that means we can still move something. If not, it's boring. It's like, hey, it's a perfect word. If it's a perfect word, I move out. You don't need me anymore in that industry. I go do something else.
Okay. And next year we go to New York, to the UN?
It is tentative on my agenda in the sense that I have the feeling it is a big event. I agree with you. I just have a weird gut feeling about it. It sounds like,
I don't get the industry there. I don't see the industry, and that's what drives me crazy.
To me, it's a bit like the Cannes Festival. If you really are into movies and cinema, the most interesting part of the Cannes Festival is not the Cannes Festival, is all the side events happening in Cannes during the Cannes Festival. And I expect that conference in New York to be a bit that way. The same like I was in New York some weeks ago, and I was at the Rethinking Water Conference, and the Rethinking Water Conference was like a byproduct, and the coolest byproduct ever, but a byproduct of the Sustainable Development Week and the Environment Week at the United Nations in New York. So a lot of people gathering, and then Columbia Water thought, hey, we should be doing Rethinking Water. And then all these brilliant minds were there anyways, and it was one of the most thoughtful conference ever. And that's my hope for March 2023, that because anyways, there's this big fuzz in the United Nations where probably neither you nor me will be invited. Maybe there are brilliant minds which are wanting to gather next to it, and that's our place.
Well, let's have some hope here.
But that was a very cool editorial. So that's your conclusion?
That's what I've seen, right? That, I mean, as I said in the beginning, we see ourselves a little bit too important, and we are not really driving, or let's say striving, to solve the issues.
So for the people watching us, if you feel like you're these people who want to drive it forward, then we are nobody to gather people. It's about building a community of people who are like-minded and then create that movement. So if you feel like you're one of the leaders who wants to take over, fine, we can be the connectors. And I really hope that we assemble one way or the other to bring our messages forward.